Breakfast with Bob.
Welcome, everybody. Bob Babbitt here, Breakfast with Bob. We are brought to you by the PTO, the Pro Triathletes Organization, by Amp Human, VeloFix, Normatec Form Goggles, You Can, and our Challenged Athletes Foundation. We just sent out 3,921 grants, totaling $5.9 million to keep challenged athletes in the game of life through sport. Our next guest, the CEO of Challenge USA, Mr. Bill Christy. How you doing, Bill?
Good, my friend. How about you?
I am spectacular. Look at you with that awesome backdrop. All we keep hearing is no events, no events, no events. You've got December 4th through 6th. You've got a huge prize purse, and Challenge Daytona will happen, correct?
I'm here to tell you that you can bet on that one. And not only can I say, can you bet on that? I'm going to tell you, I'm so confident that I'm going to say here and now, and we're going to make this public, we will guarantee registrations. In the event, we will have no questions asked. Unless we have a hurricane, we're racing. So if you register today, you, for whatever reason, can't race, we're going to give you your money back. Well, it's a small administration fee of about $39, but you're getting your money back. That's how confident we are we're racing.
Well, and the Daytona Speedway has been putting on races pretty much every weekend. And how many spectators are they putting in there?
We had 22,000, and I'm going to look over at the team to make sure I'm right. I just got the head shake. 22,000 people in the stands last weekend. Would have had more, but it is, as you know, they are growing and pacing to get to some big races by the end of the year. So they're doing it right, and we're lucky enough to have their protocols. You know, that's what we're using for our safety protocols. They're just doing an outstanding job.
So, Bill, talk a little bit about you connected with the PTO, the Pro Triathletes Organization. That's been a great partnership. And so for this year, what's going to be happening at the Speedway for the pro race? It's going to be a big prize purse.
You think about $1 million. And so, you know, kind of, and I'm just going to bounce just for a second. And
sure.
Sort of the way this whole thing happened was they're great folks to work with. And, you know, Charles and Sam and the whole team are just, you know, they think the way we think with regard to the pros. But a big part of this $1 million pros purse was, hey, look, we're excited about the prize purse, but we want to see the money. And the history with NASCAR, and the reason NASCAR was founded was because people would have races all over the country and the promoters would run off with the money and never pay out the purse. So NASCAR's got this little thing about being in control of those dollars. So PTO was very gracious to comply. They escrowed the money. The money sits in a Challenge North America escrow account here with us now. So we're ready to race. They've been great partners. They're going to pay top 40 athletes, men and women. We've got wild cards that we'll put in. They'll put wild cards in as well. And if we do it right, we'll have the best in the world racing for $1 million, paying deep. So it's going to be exciting.
So the pro race, that's going to be under the lights?
We are not going to do it under the lights because NASCAR Productions is going to do the race for us. And so it's going to look like a NASCAR race. And for the first time, we think in triathlon history, it's going to be entertainment. And so we want this to be seen, not only is it going to be OTT live streamed, but we're going to try and see if we can get it on cable or network or someplace so the people who don't necessarily understand triathlon are going to get entertained by what's going to be seen, because we're going to present it in a way that NASCAR does of their racers. So that's our goal.
You're talking cameras on the bikes.
I'm pretty sure you're going to see cameras on the bikes. I'm pretty sure
that's going to be pretty spectacular.
I think you're gonna see pointers over the top of the athletes that say things like, you know, so-and-so riding this bike at X number of miles an hour. I think you're gonna see active discussions with athletes during the race when they're racing hard. So camera angles that, you know, that we just haven't seen before, that they're set up for here. They know how to do those angles. And yeah, we're really excited about it.
So as a guy who fell into this sport as an age grouper, you fell in love with the sport.
I did.
When you were looking at the pro side of it, or just the presentation of it, coming from NASCAR, coming from big productions, what did you see? Because obviously you've come in and gone, okay, triathlon's great, love what they do. I think we can take this to another level by inserting a little NASCAR magic into it.
No question. I'd really like to tell you what we're doing is innovative. It's not. We're following NASCAR's handbook that has been so successful for so many years. Biggest part of that is engagement between the pro and the age grouper. You know, when I've raced all those years prior to starting Challenge, I knew there were pros there. I saw them go off, but that was the last time I saw them because they raced right in front of us. And so I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could actually watch the pros race, right? I mean, I wasn't fast enough that I was going to get off the course to see an award ceremony, right? That just wasn't going to happen.
They're at the airport by the time you're finishing, right? Yeah.
And so, you know, how can we make that happen? And so we split out the race, as you know, to be its own race. So the pro race is its own race. Only the pros, only the best. The women are going to go off at 10:30 in the morning, which will allow them to clear the bike course by the time the men are in the water, out of the water, and on the bike course, the women will all be running. And you'll be able to see the whole thing on live stream. But if you're in the stadium, you'll be able to see the whole thing. We'll have one of the jumbotrons up. So regardless of where the action's taking place, you can be in one place and see the whole thing. So yeah, that was the first part. The second part of it was, I don't know if you've ever seen, and my favorite part of a NASCAR race is the beginning of the race, they're showing the drivers, and the most recent graphics are the drivers are walking down this chute, and it's like a tunnel, and they get to the end of the tunnel and they strike a pose that is unique to them. And I happened to talk to one of my faves, triathletes, and I said, you know, you're a villain, and we kind of need to see the villain, right? And he said, you bet. So they're all going to do that same thing. They're going to walk down that blue screen tunnel and be in their kit and strike a pose and do the introductions, and that'll all be up on the jumbotrons as well. And so we're really trying to create that relationship between the pros and their fans, and it wasn't there in the past.
So the weekend, December 4th, 5th, and 6th, take me through, because there's, besides the pro race, it's a 3-ring circus. You got a lot of stuff going on.
Boy, Jillian's going to hear that you said that. She's going to love that.
It's
3-ring
true.
circus. Yeah, no, it's true. We start at registration. So at registration itself, you can go get in a car, and I'm not allowed to say what speed it is, but it's very fast around the track, and what's called a hot lap experience. And they're going to put you up on the wall, and you're going to be going very fast. And you've been in that experience. I'll let you talk to it, but you know that my stepson took me on that experience, and I was scared to death. But it was a really, really cool thing. So that's going on during registrations. The policies we're going to use, so the process is going to be a little bit different this year because of what we're trying to manage with health concerns. We're going to do that aggressively. But from an activity standpoint, the Pro-Am's Friday nights for registrations. We will have an expo, but we'll talk more about that with regard to policy and procedures. We will not have introductory meetings as briefings for the race briefings. It'll all be done online and on the Jumbotron. So if you're sitting there registering or whatever, the Jumbotron will be working behind you doing the race briefings the entire time. From there, the Pro-Ams that night, we will introduce the Pro-Am teams up on the Jumbotrons as it's happening down on the water, or you can be down on the water for that component of the race. After the Pro-Am, we jump right into the next morning, which is the middle distance, first thing in the morning, the middle distance age group race. After the middle distance age group race goes off, we have the kids race, the kids fun run, and then the kids triathlon race. We've got a 5K that happens, a 10K that happens. We do have an empty window for Saturday night that something may be evolving. Can't talk about that yet. We go from there into Sunday morning with the sprint, starting with the Para Championship, USA Triathlon's Para Championship. From that moment, we go into the sprint From the sprint, they clear the course, and then the pros are in the water, the women at 10:30, and the men are in the water at 12:15. And everybody gets to watch them zoom and set records. So we're excited.
And for the pros, their whole bike and run, everything on the track?
Whole thing's going to be on the track. So it's 100K. So it's a little longer than Daytona distance of past years, but not by much.
Yeah.
So it's really a modified Daytona distance. It's the 100K distance that PTO has designated. And it goes back historically, right? So that 100K distance was a big time distance years ago. I was new to learn. And so they've sort of gone back to those roots. And it worked out well for us because it wasn't that far off from the Daytona distance. So they will be running. They'll be swimming 2 laps. We're going to get them out of the water again.
Good. And
they're going to color coordinate the caps. So you're going to know color, who it is, and how they're tracking. And that's going to be done. You've seen the big polls that we've got for showing which drivers in what place. And then it shows splits on the bottom of the screen. All that will be product up on the Jumbotron as well as what people are seeing on live stream. So you'll actually know who's coming in and out of the water, where they are on what place, and those kind of splits. The next part of that is you're going to see them twice, right? Because we do that twice. They come in and out of the water. And then, boy, it's going to just be craziness after that. The biggest change from last year over this year was somebody said to me, and I'm pretty sure it was you, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could get the run and the biking right up against the fence for the fans to stand right there. So we're going to do all that on pit row. So we'll have transition 2 for the pros and the finish line, as well as the run lane and the bike lane and the camera lane right there in front of everybody right against the fence.
That's so cool. So talk a little bit about when you look at Daytona, there couldn't be anything more perfect than having a track, right? So you don't have to worry about blocking off roads or anything. And there's a lake, right? I know they built that lake basically when they built the bank up on the side of the track.
That's right.
Was your vision that, hey, this is obviously, this is meant to be. It's meant to have a race here. Are there other tracks you can be doing this at? Is this, I know the way your mind works, and I don't see you as a one-off type of guy. I see you as thinking, we're drawing a lot of people here. Where else can we do this?
So Fred, this is the time, right? Fred just shook his head. Yeah, this is the time. Bob, I promised you'd hear it first. I am excited and pleased to announce Challenge North America's second venue at the Miami Homestead International Speedway in Miami, Florida. We are excited about Miami for all the same reasons we are about Daytona, with some monumental changes. The first change is that while it has a lake inside the speedway, the lake is in fact spring-fed and crystal clear, but it is deep. So the pros will be able to do a standing start if that's the direction they choose to go. But one of the other neat things is that the road course itself is much more of a labyrinth than the run course here in Daytona. Again, it'll be a live streamed event. NASCAR Productions is going to come down and do that race for us again. That's if they still like me after Daytona. And Miami, the cool thing about Miami, and one of the things that's really big to us, is having the ability to protect the streets, right? I mean, we're so lucky here. We block off streets, we close down lanes, safety is first. Miami owns a lot of the property around the speedway. So for us to be able to enact those similar policies was just very special to us. So we've got the season ending race in Daytona.
Yes.
And I'm happy to announce that this will be the premier triathlon race season opener, March 14th weekend.
March 14th. And the other thing that impressed us when we came down for the 500, which blew me away, was all people camping in the infield and motorhomes and all this. And I know last year at Challenge Daytona, I think you quadrupled the number of people in motorhomes from the year before.
We did.
Yeah.
We actually had a party for him, thinking it wasn't going to be that many people. And the guy who was throwing the party for him, he said, I think we're going to run out of food, which we didn't. But still, yeah, it got big and bigger this year.
And also you've connected with Premium Plus Sports, one of my buddies, Deepak. And so this is not your typical just local event. And when the world changes back the way hopefully is supposed to, you see this as a big time destination race.
We think that the facilities we have on track for the next 3 years are, our thing is, you heard it last time we talked, trication. Rocky Harris called me a trication athlete. Right. And I said, boy, isn't that the truth? Sure. So being able to build, this kind of an event around a venue, around a very cool town where, you can go to a great meal and hotel and so on and so forth, and ours being right across the street. Right. So trying to incorporate all that into that Olympic Village feel. Yeah, that's what we want to do. That's where we're going. And everybody can look at the maps and figure out where the tracks are and where the water is. And
I was going to say, I'm like looking around going, wait, does Laguna Seca have water? Is there something up in Watkins Glen? I don't know where else there's water, but I'm sure you do. So is the plan is let's have, the 2 events in 2021 and then see where it goes?
Nope. 2021, the end of this year, probably at Daytona or thereabouts. Yeah. We'll announce the 3rd of the series, which will be a 2022 event, and the 4th of the series, which will be 2022 events. So we'll be, Jillian, I know God love her. You should have her on the show, because I know she's sitting there saying he's going to say it. But yeah. within then, our plan is to get to about 12 in a relatively short order. But us, we want to do it the right way, and we're only going to do it the right way. So as long as I have people like my friend Fred Gilmore sitting here right next to me, keeping me out of trouble from the old International Speedway Corporation, now NASCAR Corporation, keeping me out of trouble, we're okay. But yeah, we're going to grow. And we think that it's got to be a destination. We think it's got to be a place where the family wants to go and the family has something to do. And that lets the people who are the athlete hacks like me race without their wives saying, where'd he go for 6 hours? So yeah, we're excited about that.
When you, like you said, when you first started racing, you didn't meet any of the pros because they were already in their condo by the time you finished. And you had your light stick and you were looking around, but they weren't around. So when you got to meet these athletes,
that's so true.
I know. When you got to meet those pros for the first time, because you've invested big time in the pro athlete. Like, you believe that these athletes have something very special to offer. What was it about? Because you've been with the best drivers in the world. You know NASCAR. You know what makes Jimmy Johnson tick. You know all these guys. What was it about the pro triathletes that impressed you enough to go to these extremes to showcase those guys?
I think the first and foremost is simple. They're just amazing people. I mean, they're just nice people. We all know professional athletes, and we're lucky at NASCAR. We don't have any of those folks. But there are a lot of pro athletes out there that are untouchable. Don't talk to me. I don't want to sign your autograph. I'm not going to take a picture with your kid. That's not this world. That's not NASCAR's world. That's not this world. Some of my favorite moments, standing with Starkey's daughter, handing out medals at the finish line. I just thought that was amazing, right? Watching Meredith Kessler pick up my buddy Hugh Driscoll, who just had his personal best. He was her relay partner in the Pro-Am. She waited for him to cross. He collapsed at the line, crushed his personal best by 20 minutes. She picked him up off the ground, got him to a chair, poured water on the guy. Where else does that happen? Where else does that happen? And everybody in this sport is that way. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, I was a bit of a water skier and couldn't make any money at it because we didn't know who our fans were. And, I think that watching triathletes work as hard as they do, as starving athletes, if people knew how hard they worked for the little bit of money they made, people would be shocked. And Chip Weil, the president of Daytona International Speedway, and he's a big shot now. I think he's got a much bigger title than that. So Chip, I apologize, but recognize that he does run 3 of the biggest tracks in the country. Chip said to them, let us teach you how to act like NASCAR drivers, and hopefully we can get you compensated like athletes should be compensated, because they're dear people.
When you watched the race last year, and we had this great back and forth, Lionel Sanders, and then you had Paula Findlay and Lucy Charles. The racing was phenomenal.
Amazing,
right? And what impressed you the most from just watching these guys laying it out? That's a long season, right? They've been racing since, some of them, February and January, and this is December. And you saw how much Lionel dug to get away in the last part of that run. What were your impressions of it?
So from a race perspective, I sat here and I thought, I've never seen that. Right? From a triathlon standpoint, I'd never seen that. I had never seen 3 triathletes other than an ITU event. I'd never seen, long course folks go into a transition a foot apart and leave transition a foot apart, right? I mean, where does that happen? Where do you see 3? You had Paul, and you had Lucy, and you had Norton was sitting there, and she's sick to death. She's sick. I mean, the girl's got a fever, and Lisa Norton's out there, and they're step for step through the whole race. Where else do you see that? So then there's the technical side of me, right? So that side was the joy. And I told you, my favorite 2 components of that entire race were you were standing next to Lionel, and the number 2, 3, 4, Pablo was still on the ground. I mean, those guys were, Starkey was on the ground. Those guys are all on the ground, sucking air, because they left it all out on the course, and Lionel's helping them up.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen that. And so that was probably some of my favorite moments. Watching Meredith Kessler run into transition as Lisa and Paul and Lucy were leaving, and saying, I can get them. If I had 2 miles, I'd own them.
Bill, what did she actually say on camera when she came in the transition? Because that's what's so cool. Okay. You have live cameras.
So yeah, I guess it is live, so I'm allowed to say it. And it was really interesting, because here she is, the matriarch, right? And she's so competitive. She came in, she sat down, and Belinda Granger stuck a microphone in her face and said, how do you feel? And she said, if I had 2 more miles, I'd own those bitches. And
that's exactly what you want.
Can we go back and edit that? Can I say BI?
No, we want that. That's what you want, right? That's NASCAR.
I will tell you, that was my absolute favorite moment of 2019. She called me later and she said, I can't believe I said it. I said, if I had a nickel for every time I wished somebody said something like that, because it was real and it was raw. And, she knew that she needed a little bit more of a longer run. And it was really special. It was spectacular.
Do you think we do need more of that? Because obviously, like you said, Lionel's helping the other guys up. And there's a certain feeling of, hey, I'm racing myself. I'm racing the course. And you're out here. I want to beat you, but we're all buddies at the end of the day. And that's great. But at the same time, you do sort of need a little black hat and white hat in terms of media. Other outside media gets sports where people don't like each other. Do we need more of that? Yes, we do.
Yeah. Flat, simple, pointedly, we need it. Yeah. And I think we need it. And it's not that the athletes competitively don't feel that way. They have the ability, for whatever reason, to gauge it. So when they're getting interviewed, it's not coming out. But I think when you're getting out of a NASCAR car, and they do so well these days, but you remember the days where they got out of a car and they didn't give them a couple minutes and the microphone's in their face and they're jumping at somebody else, and that still happens from time to time. But yeah, I think we need a villain. Nothing wrong with a villain and a princess, and there's nothing wrong with Captain America. And I think we have a lot of people that fit those bills. So I'd like to see it.
I couldn't agree.
I'd like to hear the raw.
Well, the reality is, when we had Dave Scott and Mark Allen, they were not friends. They could not like each other. They wanted the same prize, right? And they had no problem talking a little smack. All right, Dave was the master at that.
And that happens. We just need it to happen out loud.
Exactly. So the other side of this is if somebody's a US based triathlete, the reality besides Kona, they're making their living in Europe, right? Or in Asia. And they're packing up and if they're an ITU athlete or even an Ironman athlete, there's not really enough money in the US racing scene for them to make a living. If you guys are putting out a dozen races down the line, there's going to be opportunity for, I think we'll see a growth in US triathletes because there'll be more visibility. We'll be able to see is that part of the reason that you want to grow this?
I'd like to think that I'd like to think it's that complex. I think there's an opportunity for a different product, and I think we're a different product, right? Yeah. I think that we started this whole thing on helping the pros understand what they could be and what their potential is. And I think we started this whole thing under family values, under Challenge Family, and what a spectacular job, it goes back to Challenge Roth and what Zeeby's done and all of those things. And now we look at it from a, wow, to your point, what could it be? And it can be real TV entertainment. Let's be fair. Triathlon, if I'm watching it on TV, is boring. And we are hoping to change that. And if we can make it entertaining, and if we can show what the people are really thinking, as opposed to having their face on all the time, because everybody gets to be that way, right? You get to be, okay, I'm going to catch you, and I'm going to surge on you, and it's going to be ugly. And I want to hear that. And we heard a little bit of that between Pablo and Lionel last year. So I think that's entertainment where people can turn it on for 30 minutes or 45 minutes and say, hey, that was cool. I don't know a lot about it, but I ride a bike from time to time, or I run, and that's really cool that they do all of these. And now I sort of get to understand, what's the backstory on that person, and how did they get there, and what have they done all their lives, and what do they do now? And, Laura, look at Laura. Laura served her country as a military officer, right? Yep. Mechanical engineer by training. How did you get here? Right? How does that happen? And the number of those stories are on and on and on, let alone the para athletes. I mean, those stories. You and I talked about that this week.
So from a NASCAR TV perspective, when you go to your NASCAR TV guys and say, okay, here's this sport, right? And it's running, it's John Collins first told the ABC guys when they said they wanted to film Ironman, he goes, I don't know why you'd want to film it. For the first hour, they're underwater. Then they ride out in the middle of nowhere. Then they run in the dark. I don't know how you're going to make this interesting. So when you they're used to shooting cars going 160 miles an hour to 200 miles an hour. And you're saying, okay, I want you to take this swim, bike, run thing and make it spectacular. What was their response?
So I was sort of expecting to get thrown out of the room. I thought the Zoom was going to get closed down.
Yeah.
And they started this ideation process that was amazing to me. And, they were sort of looking to us for guidance. I said, guys, there's no rules. Gals, there's no rule. Amy, just all of them. As I look at Steve and Steve's team, Steve Stumm's team, they've been doing this a long time. And, as he brought in Mark and Keith and all of them sat back and continued to say, well, why can't we do this? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do this? And the PTOs had some good input on that too. They're like, hey, have we thought about this? So it's gone as far as, do we mic the bikes so we can talk to the athletes? And then, whose bike do you mic? Whose do you don't? How much weight are we adding? Where do you put the mic? So there are things that sort of fell back and forth on a lot of that stuff that we could do through aerial and GPS location and get a lot of that data and, be able to communicate with them relatively close by. So we're going to get all that information, but these guys and gals were thinking of stuff. I'm like, well, how do we do that? Well, we've got a hard plant camera located here so we can get this angle doing this. So when they come out of the water, it was just amazing. And there was no rules. So they could, it was just a total creative process. It was amazing to me. And they're really fun people and very gifted.
Wow, they're going to take the sport to another level, and I love that. In terms of people signing up, can people still sign up? Sold out? What numbers are you looking for?
So a part of the COVID deal, and let's talk about that real quick. But a part of the COVID deal is we decided to cap at 1,700 middle distance and 1,700 sprint.
Okay.
And while we have capacity to way extend beyond that, we went through a pretty heavy math calculation for social distancing in transition to figure out what we wanted to do. And we wanted to leave ourselves 30% room in that facility. Now you've seen that. We used 30% of it last year for 800 bikes. And so the operations team, wants to have an additional 30%, and that's 10 bikes to a rack, 30 feet long, spaced at 6 feet between, plus 6 feet.
Sure.
I mean, it's crazy. So that's actually, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that. Yeah. And that is, what do we do for our health plan, right? Mm-hmm. And our plan's pretty simple. These guys wrote the book, and I'm sitting next to one of the guys who wrote that book. Say hi, Fred. There's Fred. Fred Gilmore from NASCAR, and Fred and his team are just so exceptional in how do you move 200,000 people around, right? That's what they do. So the plan is that you will register online. We'll shut down registration on the 1st. You will receive the day before registration an app, a link on your phone. You hit the link, you fill out the questionnaire, agree, disagree, boom. It gets assessed by medical. Once it's been assessed, you get a QR code. You're going to come back and you're going to have a QR code on your phone. It's going to have a registration time. So you will be told what time you've got to hit the gate to register. And obviously, we're going to have all those locations and stuff done. You'll show up in your car with a mask on. They'll take your temperature and the temperature of everybody in the car. If you pass, I think it's 100.4. Let me read my note here to make sure I got it right. It's 100.4. You're cleared if you're under. You get a wristband color of the day, everybody in the vehicle, and you're allowed into the facility to proceed on to registration. Now, we'll talk about that in a second. If you fail, you go to a secondary screening, which I am told that 99.9% of those failures are functions of the fact that people had their mask on their dashboard, then they put it on, then they got their temperature read, or they were sitting in a car without air conditioning on, right? These things, so they took them to the secondary screening, put them in the EMT truck. It brought down their temperature. They were then cleared. They were put back into the queue, very quickly into the queue, and then cleared. But if anybody in the car fails, you've got to go through secondary screening. If there is a health issue, then we're going to ask you to go straight across the street to Halifax Health to conduct further screening. So that's getting into, and as you know, there's only one way to get in and out. That's the tunnel.
Right.
So that's how you get in. From there, at registration, everybody's required to wear a mask. There are going to be people walking around with signs saying, please socially distant. The fan zone is going to be bigger than it was last year. The expo, everybody will be wearing masks, wearing gloves. If it's in an expo, they'll be behind a plastic shield. Any transactions that will be done will all be done through card. There'll be no cash taking place. They will go into registration, which is a big room that's totally, all the doors are open. It's, as you can imagine, so very aggressively socially distanced for registration. There's only 3 podiums in registration, so you're not near anybody. Because you're timed on your coming into the facility on registration, it won't be, there won't be a lot of people around you. In your kit, you will be given hand sanitizer at the time that you're entered in. There will be hand sanitizer. We just ordered 8,000. Fred told me we're good with 8,000. 8,000 bottles of hand sanitizer. So we're going to pass out 8,000 bottles of hand sanitizer over the weekend. More if we need to. So there you are, you're registered, right? So then you say, okay, we've talked about what happens at the expo. We've talked about, how about race briefings? Race briefings, Bob, and I think we sent you graphics of
Yep.
what the Jumbotron looks like, so you can put that up. Race briefings are going to be done on the Jumbotrons. So it's a little different than last year. I think that one of the highlights in my view last year was the pro athlete introduction and autograph session. Mm-hmm. So each pro has a Challenge Daytona autograph card. It's got picture of them and one of their favorite poses. And there was personal signatures. We can't do that this year. We've got to protect everybody. So the athletes there will still be on the stage, and we will still do the introductions. There won't be any contact with the athletes. It'll all be up on the Jumbotron, and you will be able to walk into a card drop that will have an autographed pro card from that athlete. Okay. So that takes care of registration days. What happens the day of the event? You're going to get another QR code that day. You're going to have to fill it out. They're going to check it. They're going to take everybody's temperature on the queue. You fail, you know what happens. You pass, you get a different colored wristband. You go to the right, you go inside, you go to rack your bike. You'll, in transition, as you enter transition, you'll be given a surgical mask. We will ask you to replace the mask you have on with that.
Oh, wow.
You'll wear that all the way through as we wrap you around the lake in socially distant format, 6 feet apart. We're still going to do a rolling start, but you will be one at a time all the way around the lake until you get closer to, and then we'll have 2 ramps in, one at a time. So we'll socially distance, and right before you go into the ramp, there's going to be a trash can. You'll take the mask off, you'll throw it in the trash can, you'll hit the water.
Wow. You guys have thought this out a little bit.
We have thought this out. We and our friends who have helped us a bunch. The finish line, we again went with a lot of your recommendations. You guys said, hey, we should have a special, Triathlon Terrence said we need to have a space for the photographers and for the interviews so it doesn't clog up, because so many people got into that area last year. So we've got a special area of photographers. You'll be doing interviews on a boom, so you won't be able to get close to them, but you'll be doing your interviews from a very specific area for you, with a boom to do the athletes, and they'll be given a mask immediately upon crossing the line. They will be exited and escorted out through a separate exit. With regard to the age group athletes, same exact thing. They're going to cross the line. They're going to be handed a mask. They will pick up their own awards. We won't, unfortunately, do the second, one of my most favorite parts of the race to date was where the pros actually put your medal on you and you got an autograph of who that was right then and there. We can't do that this year, but we're going to make it up to you in other ways. So the families are going to be pushed back. We're going to have bleacher sections for those folks, socially distanced, so they can see their family members. But probably one of the most exciting things we're going to do this year versus past years is, to the first time in my knowledge, and so I don't know this, and I always rely on you and Peter Henning to know all things triathlon, is we will have all of the age group races up on the Jumbotron rolling the entire weekend. So you can see your family member racing the entire time.
Very cool. Bill, you should be very proud. You guys have come a long way in just a few years, and now having to deal with all this COVID stuff. Do you think it's going to be an issue trying to get some of the top pros over here from Europe?
I don't think it's going to be a question of do they want to be here. I think
we know they want to be here.
Right. Yeah. Can they be here? Right. I've spoken to a bunch of them. I know for a fact that our friends in Australia are already made their plane tickets and they're already inbound. Most everybody I've talked to is sure they're going to be here. Because we moved the race 1 week forward, the real question was quarantine going home. And so most all of them have been like, you know what, I get 2 weeks when I get back. I still get my family for the holidays. I'm good. So that's what we're hearing. Are we going to see challenges? You bet. I'd like to say we're not. I don't know what those are yet, but I will tell you that Lionel's got his eye on some specific folks that he's hoping get here. So I said to him, I said, Lionel, this is your house. You got to defend it. So we're looking for a race.
He'll be there. Hey, Bill, Congratulations on everything you guys have done in a really short period of time. I mean, making Challenge Daytona one of the premier events in the world in a very short period of time is pretty damn cool, with $1 million prize purse and the greatest athletes on the planet, plus age groupers in one of the most iconic venues ever. That's pretty fun stuff, man. It's going to be a pleasure to be back down there in December to watch all the three-ring circus in action.
We look forward to having him. By gosh, if it wasn't for NASCAR, if it wasn't for Fred Gilmore, Daytona International Speedway, PTO, if it wasn't for all you folks, that kept saying, do this, do that. We can make this better. Never would have been better. Never would have gotten better. So thanks, you guys. Hey, we hope everybody gets here. We're looking forward to having you guys down. You guys are always a trip to have. We love having you. So
All right.
look forward to seeing you in
Christy,
December.
You're the best. Bill Christy has been our guest, everybody. Again, Breakfast with Bob. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Thank you, Bill.
Cheers. Thank you.